Hi everybody, today we're going to be talking about how we can display data. And we're going to be touching on 3 different types of ways to display data. There are many more, but today we're just going to be talking about 3. Bar graphs, line graphs, and a new one for you maybe, a histogram. So just like this Lego man, we're going to settle up. Let's do this. All right. So data in a bar graph. There are different types of bar graphs. We have single, double, triple, quadruple, many different types. So I'm going to show you just a few of those today. In a double bar graph, the bar graph is used to compare data between and within data sets. The data in a bar graph can be either horizontal or vertical, so I'll show you both of those and what they look like. And bars represent usually one item or topic, a number. So this is one example of a bar graph you might see. So the garden supply store sold 5 lawnmowers on Tuesday, 20 on Wednesday, and 25 on Thursday, and 25 more on Friday. Use the data to complete the missing bar graph. So if you had this, you just have to select the number that matches up with 25. It should be fairly easy to do, straightforward. You just want to make sure you toggle up to 25 and then release your cursor and it would click and you would fill in 25. So 25 Friday, 25 Thursday, on Wednesday or 20, Tuesday, Friday. You could find the mean, median, mode. You could also find the range. You could also find the total number of sold just by looking at this bar graph. Let's do another one. Let's interpret this one. This one is called a double bar graph. So looking at the key, a legend is very important in a graph. You're looking at 2 different years. We have the green, which is 1993, and the teal, which is 1995. The title of the graph says healthcare spending per capita. Technically, if this was be corrected, healthcare spending per would not be capitalized, capita would, because per is a preposition. Everything other than prepositions should be capitalized, and usually you underline a title, whether it's on paper or on a graph as well. You see your y-axis is your dollars. That's your independent variable. It depends on your other. So on your horizontal axis here, you have countries. Countries is the name of the title. You have Zambia, Ethiopia, and Nepal. And they're comparing data over time. So this is in 1993, and in Zambia it was 35, and now it's 40 per capita per person. So Ethiopia has a tie at $20, and Nepal is a tie at 45, then increased to 50. Now over here, you want to make sure you look at this because usually they would put on the side, if it happens to be dollars in millions and trillions, examples, or population, they usually do that. They usually put like a single digit, but then on the side they put billions, trillions, etc., hundreds. So let's look at another one. So anytime you want to see comparison over time or in different sections or different products, you would use a bar graph. If you have comparing more than one product, you would use more than one bar. So for example, in this one, if you're running a company and you have 3 different products and you want to just look at their growth or their decline over time, you could manage it here. So this is quarter 1, and I have 3 items, so it would go up to here. Quarter 2, 3 items, quarter 3, and then quarter 4. Now this is displayed horizontally, so these bars are horizontal and they go across, and then you have to look at your x-axis right here to see what they're valued at. So this is a little over, this is 6, 9, probably around $10,000 for product X. Then it decreased in quarter 2, continued to decrease in 3, and continued to decrease in 4. So maybe the trends have changed. Maybe they should discontinue that product because it has reached its peak. It looks like the product Z is going back and forth, and the product Y is going back and forth as well. So it looked like X was a pretty solid contender for a while, but then it has decreased over time, and maybe they'd want to discontinue that product or see if they could find a different product that would meet the market. So data in the line graph, there are also different types of those. There's single, double, triple, etc. That you see more often. You're probably more familiar with them. It's just data points, and then they're connected with lines. They show change over time. So that's huge. It's over time. So whenever you want to see change over time, you want to use a line graph. They can be horizontal or vertical. Each line usually represents a separate data set or a separate display of information. And specific data points are represented, so there you'll see dots on there usually on most graphs. Otherwise, if you're just using a computer software, they might just be a line. Trends can be seen over time. So again, keyword, if you want to see change over time, you want to use a line graph. So let's look at a few. Here is one. This is called a single line graph, and it does have dots on it. They don't always, but it always has a title. Again, if we wanted to correct this title, let's use correct grammar here. These would all be capitalized. You can underline a title. Please do so. Underline your title. That goes on the top. Then also your y-axis need to have a label, and your x-axis needs to have a label. This thing here is called a break. So if you don't want to go from 0 to 50, because you don't have any data that represents 0 to 50, you do what something's called a break. Let me erase that so you can see it a little better. This break here is so that you don't have to go from 0 to a billion, okay? So this highest data set is 100. I would probably actually start my break at 60 because I don't have any data, and I do want to show that there's a break here. And then on the bottom, I have months: January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. There's not a specific order that you do have to do it in, but usually January is the first month, so they usually put that first. So over time, this does not have a label, specific label. This should have, since it is overtime, it should have a year on it. In which month did Jesse charge $80 to his credit card? So to figure this out, you find 80. This would be the month. You follow it down. And how you interpret this, you read this. May has a charge of $80. So when did he spend the most? He spent the most in April, in March, and in January. So his mode would be $100. You could also figure out the mean from this data set. You just take your data points, add them all up, and divide by how many data sets you have, how many months of data you have. So you can find mean, median, mode, range. His smallest amount was in July and September, was $70. So every month he's charging between $70 and $100 on his credit card. Many things you can do with that data. All right, let's interpret this one. This is a double line graph because there are 2 lines. Guess what you do with the triple line graph? You'd have 3 lines. Usually in double line graphs, it's very important that you use different colors or styles. So you might see a solid line, or you might see a dashed line, different ways to represent your data so it's very clear. Again, you want to have a key or a legend. It can be anywhere on your graph. Usually you find it in the bottom or the side, over here, or over here, where you have your legends. Always have to have titles. So again, this website that I got these clips from, we're not awesome at making titles. Language arts skills here, folks. All right, titles have capital letters. You capitalize everything that's not a preposition. Amount raised, again, that's a title, so that should be capitalized. Month. So this one started with May, June, July, August, September. These only have 5 months. So if you were finding the mean of this data set, you divide by 5. Again, you can have a break, but since the lowest number here is $10, you probably will not see a break because it's very easy to go count by increments of 10. Your labels go at where the X and Y axes intersect. So right at the crossing, the perpendicular lines. That's where your labels will be. So it looks like just from this data set here that the baseball team started high and then they went down a little bit, they peaked and then they tanked in September. And the football team started high in June, a little down in July, up in August, up in September, maybe kicking off for that season. Football season is usually in the fall, where baseball season's in the spring. So that's maybe why their data's different. That's maybe why they tanked in September, because it's over. You're thinking about football now, not baseball. So you can tell who raised the most, who raised the least. You can see how much the baseball team and football team, and did a comparison there. This just shows change over time. Double line graph, change over time. Okay, so now we're going to get to a histogram. In a histogram, it's very different. Data is grouped into even intervals. Even is a keyword. It has to be even, called bins. Bins is what makes a histogram different than everything else. A histogram is a type of bar graph, but again, the data is sorted into bins. There are no spaces between your data. They can be horizontal or vertical, and again, no spaces, so that means your bars are going to touch. Each bar represents a data range, again, a bin. So for example, if you had the numbers 1 through 5, every number that fell in between 1 and 5 would go in that bin. It shows frequency within intervals. You're going to want to create a frequency table or tally marks to keep track. And then a histogram is, again, a type of bar graph. So here are some examples. This is a histogram. Do you see how the bins all touch? The bars all touch. They color-coded it just so you can see them. They don't have to be different colors. They could be all the same colors. You could do different patterns. You could do more than 2 colors. Again, capitalize, please, everything but a preposition. In all titles, you have 3 titles, x-axis, y-axis, and your main title for your screen. So all the numbers between 0 and 19 are in here. All the numbers between 20 and 39, etc. This is number of cracked window panes. So if you are a company that does panes of glass for buildings and you're sending them out, you want to make sure you have a good product. It looks like they have quite a few cracked window panes. So 0 through 19, they have 120 to 139. They have 8 times. Okay, so there might be an easier way to display this data, a more conducive way, but it's a good good visual that they have quite a few that are cracked, another high one here, high frequency between 20 and 39. So they want to look at that data and see where how they're shipping that many, and maybe that will lead to a solution for their company. So here's another one. Number of push-ups. So if, let's say you're doing a push-up competition with your friends and you wanted to keep track of how many push-ups the average person could do. So 0 to 9, you have 30 people that could go 0 to 9. You have 10 people that could do 10 to 19. 30 to 39, you have 40 people. 30 people could do 40 to 49. You have 25 that could do 60 to 69. And 70 to 79, 15 people. So you could figure out how many people there are in all by writing down, okay, that's 30 plus 10. So that gets us up to 40 now. We're at another 40 to be at 80, plus 30 more, plus 25 more, and 15 more. So out of this, there were 150 participants, and you can see where you rank. Okay, so now we're going to work on creating a histogram. Kind of run out of time, so I'm going to talk fast. Make sure you pause if you need to. Read this over. We need to determine the range, create intervals, a frequency table, sort data into table, create a histogram, and check to see if we have intervals, bars, touch, labels, and accurate displayed data. So when we create, we want to first look at the data, and we want to create intervals of 5. Pause the video and see if you can create your own. All right, let me get you started here. So you have to look at your data and see where your smallest numbers are. You have a 4, and a 5. So I need to make sure I go down to the lowest. I usually like starting at 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 through 15, 16 to 20. So these are all intervals of 5 because they all represent 5 numbers. So if you start, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are 5 numbers, so they're all going to go into that bin. So what I'm going through, I'm just going to place tally marks. I have 1, 5. I have a 2 that's going to go in there. I have a 6, that's going to go in this bin. A 15 is going to go in this bin. A 10 is going to go in this bin. Pause the video and see if your tallies match mine at the end. All right, so I just went through all my data and made tally marks. And when you get to 5, you just cross through it. And then I went back and wrote the number. So I have 7 in 1 through 5, 8 in 6 through 10, 11 in bin 11 through 15, and 1 in 16 through 20. So when I go to make my histogram, hold on, I just got to erase this quick. When I go to make my histogram, I'm going to have to first create my bins. So the bins all need to touch. So I'm going to start here and do bins 1 through 5, and I want to try to do as even as possible. I have 6 through 10. Try to make them the same size, 11 through 15, and 16 through 20. I have a title, allowance in dollars, and number of students. And I'm going to have my title be weekly allowance. Again, I capitalize everything but prepositions. Now I need a frequency. So frequency here is going to be 0. I don't need a break because I have numbers in 1 through 5. So I have 1, 2, I have to go up to 8, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you want to make it as large as possible. So for 1 through 5, we go up to 7. And this is where a straight edge comes in handy. You can freehand it like me. And then 6 through 10, I have 8, so I go up to 8, and your bars need to touch. 11 through 15, I have 4. 16 through 20, I only have 1. And then I always want to jazz it up a little bit. This doesn't look awesome, but if I wanted to do different patterns or colors, they really make a difference. So here's I completed histogram. It could be a lot prettier. I could have taken more time. So let's go to the next one. Here is your next one. We're going to start by making a frequency table, and we're going to do intervals of 10. So start with looking at the lowest number in your table. So 51 looks like it's the lowest. So I'm going to make my bins from 50 to 59, 60 to 69, 70 to 79, and 80 to 89. Pause the video and make your frequency table. So when I did my frequency table, I did it a little bit differently this time. I started with my bins, and I went horizontally instead. But then when you go to creating your frequency table, the bins are already on there for you this time. You just have to create the frequency. From 50 to 59, I have 4. I just change colors here. So I go up to 4 and draw a line. I want to make sure I try to space these evenly. So my bars are about the same width. Just looks nice. And then 60 to 69, I'm going to continue on with that 4. And then I drop down and I have 2 each for these bins. Again, designs always make them look cooler. Get artsy. Do something so that you can tell yours is different than your neighbor's. add color. The thing I am missing is here is a title, so add